Today, I will be talking about some controversial Supreme Court cases pertaining to the First Amendment right of freedom of the press. The Bill of Rights doesn't exactly spell out how free the press is, and it is left up to the interpretation of the courts. It is also their job to make sure that no imminent threat to national security is posed through the press. Over the course of our nation's history, there have been many Supreme Court cases where the First Amendment right of freedom of the press has been challenged. One such case was the Nebraska Press Association versus Stewart. A state judge, presiding over a murder trial which was widely publicized, gave an order that members of the press could not publish accounts of confessions made to the police by the accused. The judge's order was meant to guarantee a fair trial to the accused, yet it was felt that it violated the First Amendment, for, according to the Supreme Court Chief Justice Burger, a whole community cannot be restrained from discussing a subject intimately affecting life within it. Another such case is New York Times versus United States, more commonly known as the Pentagon Papers case, in which the Nixon administration tried to stop the New York Times and Washington Post from publishing information from a classified study by the Defense Department on the history of U.S. activities in Vietnam. Nixon felt that the restraint was crucial to protect our national security, yet Nixon's attempts at blocking their publishing were considered a violation of the First Amendment, for it was felt that their publication would not pose an imminent threat to security. In the case Branzburg versus Hayes, Branzburg, a journalist, interviewed a number of people producing and using drugs for a story published in a Louisville newspaper. Twice, he was called to testify for state grand juries investigating drug crimes. He refused to testify and possibly disclose his confidential sources. The Supreme Court, however, found that it was not an abridgment of the freedoms of speech and press to require Branzburg to testify, for if reporters receive information confidentially, it does not give them the privilege to withhold that information for a government investigation. These past three Supreme Court cases have shown the extension and limitations of the First Amendment right to freedom of the press. Thank you for listening, and information on Supreme Court cases used for this podcast came from Oye.com.